For decades, British families were told the same thing. Cut back on red meat, avoid the fry-up, fill your plate with carbs instead. A slice of toast was healthy. Bread was the foundation of a balanced diet. Meanwhile, heart disease kept climbing. Obesity kept rising, and the traditional breakfast they demonized, eggs, bacon, real food with real ingredients, was never actually the problem. What replaced it was something else entirely. Mass-produced loaves engineered in factories, softened with chemicals, preserved with additives, and stabilized with ingredients no traditional baker has ever kept in their kitchen. The ingredient list on a modern supermarket loaf reads less like food and more like a chemistry textbook, and most people buying it every single week have no idea what's actually inside. Today, we're exposing 5 bread brands the UK should be far more concerned about. Products linked to recalls over metal contamination. Everyday loaves, so heavily processed and artificially constructed that calling them bread is becoming genuinely difficult to justify, because bread was never supposed to be complicated. Flour, water, yeast, and salt. That's it. That's all it ever needed to be. What's sitting on supermarket shelves today is something very different, and it's time to talk about it. Number 1. Tesco White Sliced. The loaf that goes into millions of British shopping trolleys every single week without a second thought. It's cheap, it's familiar, it's always on the shelf, and that's precisely what makes it so easy to overlook and so worth talking about. Nobody picks up Tesco White Sliced thinking they're making a risky choice. That's the problem. It's so ordinary, so plain, so completely unremarkable that most people never stop to question what's actually in it. But read the ingredient list carefully and the picture changes fast. High salt, minimal fiber, added sugar, cheap refined white flour that spikes your blood sugar faster than most people realize, and then the list of additives that no traditional baker has ever kept anywhere near a mixing bowl. Emulsifiers, preservatives, texture modifiers, all working together to keep this loaf soft, springy, and perfectly shaped, far longer than any naturally made bread ever could. This is not food made for your health. It is food made for warehouses, lorries, long distribution chains, and maximum profit at minimum cost. It is engineered to survive weeks of handling without changing shape, smell, or texture. And when something is designed to resist natural breakdown on a shelf, you have to ask yourself what it is doing inside your digestive system instead. Emulsifiers like E471 manipulate the crumb structure to maintain that artificially soft texture. Seed oils extend shelf life while creating the smooth, uniform consistency that shoppers have been gradually conditioned to expect. And that conditioning is part of the problem. Over generations, the British public has been trained to believe this is simply what bread feels like. Light, bouncy, identical slice after slice, lasting a week in a plastic bag without going stale. But that is not how real bread behaves. Real bread goes stale. Real bread has uneven texture. Real bread has character and life. The only reason this loaf stays soft and uniform for so long is because it is held together by industrial additives that have no place in something calling itself a basic staple. Tesco White Sliced is the perfect symbol of modern food deception, presented as simple and affordable while being quietly engineered with ingredients your body was never designed to process every single morning. Number 2. Warburton's. I can already hear it. Warburton's is a British institution. It's been on breakfast tables for generations, and you're right, it absolutely has. That's exactly why this conversation matters. Open up a standard Warburton's white loaf and look at the ingredient list. You'll find E472E, just a number. Sounds completely harmless. But E472E is mono and diacetyl tartaric acid esters of mono and diglycerides. It's an industrial emulsifier. And while regulators have approved its use in food, research is increasingly showing that emulsifiers like this one can disrupt the delicate balance of bacteria living in your gut. That matters more than most people realize. Your gut contains trillions of microorganisms that regulate your immune system, your digestion, your mental health, and your energy levels. Disturb that balance regularly, and you're not just affecting your stomach. You're affecting your entire body from the inside out. Many Warburton's loaves also contain a flour treatment agent that includes L-cysteine, a compound that can be derived from duck feathers or processed human hair. That is not an exaggeration. The bread millions of British families eat every morning may contain exactly that. But perhaps the biggest issue with Warburton's is something most shoppers have never heard of. The Chorleywood bread process. Invented in the 1960s, this industrial method allows bread to be produced in under 3 hours rather than the traditional 12 to 16. It achieves this by adding extra yeast, chemical improvers, and using high-speed mixers that beat air violently into the dough. This process breaks down the natural structure of wheat proteins in ways your digestive system genuinely struggles with. That bloated, heavy feeling after a sandwich is not normal. It is your body working harder than it should to process something that was never made the natural way. And because the Chorleywood process skips slow fermentation entirely, the bread develops none of the complex nutrients and flavors that time naturally creates. So, manufacturers compensate by adding extra sugar, fat, and salt. What you end up with is essentially industrial foam dressed up as a family favorite. Number 3, Kingsmill. Kingsmill loves to promote their Great White range. Great for who, exactly? Because it is certainly not great for your blood sugar. Their white bread carries a glycemic index of around 75. To put that in perspective, that is higher than pure table sugar. When you eat something with a GI that high, your blood sugar shoots up rapidly. Your pancreas responds by flooding your system with insulin. Then your blood sugar crashes hard, leaving you exhausted, irritable, and reaching for more food within a couple of hours. Do that every morning for years, and you are laying the groundwork for insulin resistance, weight gain, and eventually type 2 diabetes. But here is where Kingsmill gets particularly clever. Their 50-50 bread. Marketed as the sensible middle ground, the healthier choice for families who want something better than plain white. Except, look at the ingredients, and you will find high fructose glucose syrup sitting right there in the list. A sweetener, strongly linked to fatty liver disease, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. There is no nutritional reason for bread to contain this ingredient. It is there because it makes the loaf taste slightly sweet, triggers reward centers in your brain, and keeps you coming back for more. That craving you feel for a particular bread is not random. It is engineered, and their wholemeal range is no better. The second ingredient after wholemeal flour is sugar. They have taken something that could genuinely be nutritious and quietly turned it into a vehicle for hidden sugar consumption. If sugar appears in the top 3 ingredients of your bread, you are not eating bread. You are eating cake with a healthier label on the front. Think about what this does to a typical morning. Toast at 7, blood sugar spiked and crashed by 8:30, tired and unfocused before 9, starving again by 10:30 despite having eaten less than 4 hours earlier. That is not a normal hunger cycle. That is blood sugar. Chaos built directly into the ingredients. Kingsmill also uses rapeseed oil across many of their loaves. Heavily processed, sometimes partially hydrogenated, and capable of producing trans fats that raise bad cholesterol, lower good cholesterol, and increase cardiovascular risk. The UK banned artificial trans fats in 2018, but trans fats occurring through oil processing remain permitted. Kingsmill sits comfortably inside that loophole while technically following the rules. Kingsmill is owned by Associated British Foods, the same corporation behind Primark. They understand margins. They understand how to use the cheapest possible ingredients and present them as quality products. Your long-term health is not the priority. Your weekly repeat purchase is. Number 4. Asda Bakery Soft White. Despite what the label says, there is absolutely nothing bakery about this loaf. The word bakery is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It makes you picture a warm local shop, a real oven, someone who actually cares about what goes into your bread. It makes you feel safe. It makes you stop asking questions. And that is exactly what Asda is counting on, because this bread is not baked fresh in store. It is produced in large industrial factories, pre-mixed, pre-processed, loaded onto lorries, and delivered to shelves under a label carefully chosen to make it sound like something it simply is not. Look past the packaging and read what is actually inside. Refined white flour with most of its natural goodness already removed. Seed oils your body was never designed to handle every single day. Preservatives keeping the loaf unnaturally soft long after real bread would have gone stale. Emulsifiers forcing a texture that nature alone could never produce. Added sugars making it taste better than the cheap base ingredients ever could on their own. No traditional baker would recognize any of this as their work. This is not food crafted for your health. It is a product engineered to survive a long industrial journey and still look acceptable when it reaches your kitchen. And the low price is part of the plan. Keep it affordable enough, and most shoppers will never stop to think about what eating this every morning is quietly doing to their body over months and years, slowly pushing blood pressure higher, spiking blood sugar at breakfast day after day, disrupting the gut bacteria that keep your immune system working properly. Millions of British families trust this loaf every single week simply because the word bakery is printed on the bag. That one word is costing people far more than they realize. Number 5. Hovis. Few brands have built a stronger emotional connection with British families. That famous television advert. The boy pushing his bike up the cobbled hill, a sense of heritage, warmth, and wholesome tradition baked into every loaf. It is powerful marketing, and for decades it worked perfectly. But open the bag, and the wholesome story starts to fall apart. Take their standard white loaf. It contains caramel coloring. Most people hear the word caramel and think of sugar, something natural and harmless, but the caramel coloring used in processed food is created through an industrial chemical process that produces compounds called 4-methylimidazole. Animal studies have linked this compound to potential cancer risks. One slice probably will not hurt you, but you are not eating one slice. You are eating this bread multiple times a day, every day, for years. That kind of long-term accumulation is exactly what most people never stop to consider. Hovis also uses palm oil across several of their products, heavily processed, stripped of nutritional value, and added purely because it is cheap. But what really deserves attention is the gap between how Hovis markets itself and what is actually in the bag. They present themselves as the traditional, natural, healthy choice. Wholemeal labels, seeds on the crust, heritage branding everywhere you look. Flip the bag over, though, and you find vegetable oils, emulsifiers, preservatives, flour treatment agents, and soya flour. Soya flour is cheaper than wheat flour and speeds up production. But soya is also one of the most genetically modified crops on the planet. Unless the label specifically states organic soya, you are almost certainly eating GMO ingredients without knowing it. And their wholemeal bread carries its own hidden problem. Hovis mills the wheat, separates the bran and germ to produce white flour, then adds portions back later to create what they call wholemeal. Genuine wholemeal bread is never separated in the first place. By splitting and recombining the grain, much of the natural nutritional value is lost in the process. The heritage is real. The wholesome ingredients are not. I know what you're thinking. That was a lot to take in. And if you are standing in your kitchen right now wondering what on earth you are supposed to eat, that is completely understandable. But here is the good news. There are genuinely decent options out there, and they are not hard to find. The simplest rule to follow is this: look for bread with fewer than 7 ingredients. If you cannot pronounce half the list, put it back. Real sourdough, made with just flour, water, and salt, is one of the best choices available. The natural fermentation process breaks down the compounds that cause bloating and digestive discomfort, and it significantly lowers the impact on your blood sugar compared to standard supermarket bread. It is not a trend. It is simply how bread used to be made before factories got involved. If you are shopping in supermarkets, look for brands like Bertine bread, artisan grains, or Biona organic. Yes, they cost more. But you are paying for real ingredients and honest production rather than a cheap loaf held together with emulsifiers and preservatives. You can also make your own. It is genuinely easier than most people think. A basic no-knead loaf takes about 5 minutes of actual effort and costs roughly 40 pence to make at home. You control every single ingredient. No chemicals, no additives, just real food. And if bread itself is the problem, consider alternatives. Rye bread, sprouted grain loaves, or even vegetable-based wraps can completely change how you feel day to day. The goal is not to never eat bread again. The goal is to eat bread that actually nourishes your body instead of quietly working against it. Are you eating any of these brands right now? Have you noticed how certain loaves make you feel? Drop a comment below because your experience genuinely matters. And if this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it.